Welcome to the Punting is Winning podcast. Just two fans talking all things Hawkeyes. Here are your hosts, JD and Keith.
Welcome back, Hawkeye fans, to Punting is Winning, the All Iowa podcast. We are your hosts, Keith and JD. We are up to, week number 9, game number 8. Is that right?
Yes.
The bye week in there.
Yep.
Pretty good showing by Iowa yesterday. After the first quarter, I'd say. First half was kind of ugly, but definitely turned it on after that. So we'll cover that. But first, we want to go over the question of the week last week. Last week's question of the week was, when was the last time Iowa successfully converted on a 2-point conversion? And that was your question, I believe.
Yeah. You didn't have to go real far back. 2020 is actually the answer. And we did it 3 times in 2020. November 13th against Minnesota and a 35-7 win. We did December 5th. Remember, this was the COVID year. December 5th against Illinois, also in a win. And we did December 12th the next week against Wisconsin in a 28-7 win. So we did it 3 times. So actually, the answer to the question is December 12th, 2020 was the last time Iowa converted on a 2-point conversion. So I think Dean and maybe one other person might have gotten that correct.
Yeah, I noticed that somebody had answered it. I wasn't sure who it was for sure, but
I appreciate all you guys that wrote in or commented about, all the comments this week. We had several comments this week. All appreciated. We take a lot of those things under advisement, and we do appreciate you answering the question and commenting on what you're hearing. So we appreciate that.
I love getting the feedback. And to answer the one person's question, yes, that is a real picture of me. It may not look as much like me, but it is more of a professional headshot. So I don't look quite that way normally, but I did at one point. So thanks for pointing that out. So moving on to yesterday's game against Northwestern, a 40-14, I would say surprising blowout win. I don't know that I would call it a surprise. I think when I texted you earlier in the day before the game started, I said 34-10 was what I thought the game would be, somewhere around that. So margin of victory was pretty close. The point total was fairly close. I didn't figure it was going to be a real close game. Like I said, I thought Iowa would right the ship when it comes to the defense, that they would probably got their butts chewed all week about their inability to tackle. And I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that they are preaching a little bit more of causing turnovers. So I think the mindset was a little bit more about tackling the ball as opposed to tackling the ball carrier. And you got to get the guy down on the ground before you can worry about knocking the ball out. So let's work on the tackling before we work on the
I thought it was kind of
turnovers.
I thought it was kind of apropos though that first play that Northwestern ran was or maybe it was the second play. They threw the ball out to the side, and the first guy missed the tackle. And I'm like, oh, here we go again. But they righted it. They started tackling well, and everything seemed to turn out okay. We have some things that we could clean up, of course, just like anybody, any game. But overall, I'm not unhappy with the way the game came out, and we'll get into it. We'll talk about it. We'll break it down a little bit, and we'll see where we're at the end of it, and we'll go through Wisconsin preview, and we got some other things we need to talk about after that too.
Okay. Yeah, I thought that very first series of plays, probably the first 5 or 6 plays, I was like, oh boy, here we go again.
Yeah.
And I think I texted you and said that this isn't any better than it was last week. This is like on repeat. But then they forced that 50-yard field goal that was not even remotely close. And it just seemed to be like at that point the defense tightened down, and you could tell in the second half the defense really tightened down. And I think there's a reason behind that. and we'll get into that. But yeah, 168 total yards, something like that. So not displeased with that. I don't think they had 100 yards until there was about a minute left in the third quarter. So, yeah, the defense definitely did their job.
It was 163. They had 120 passing and 43 rushing.
Yeah, far cry different than it was the week before.
Oh, yeah. They were 2 of 12 on third down conversions. That's pretty good for the defense. Didn't give up a point on defense either. That's another plus.
No. That's third time this year that Northwestern hasn't scored an offensive point. So,
yeah,
it's not a good Northwestern team.
No,
they're an average team, although they've made some other teams look really bad. Maryland, I'm calling you out.
Yeah, and they didn't play great against Wisconsin, but they only gave up 23 to Wisconsin. They actually played Indiana fairly well. Didn't win, obviously, but they played them well. I thought they gave them a good run.
Just boat raced Maryland a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, they took Maryland behind the woodshed back a couple Fridays ago, and yeah, it wasn't much of a game.
Yeah, so it's the Jekyll and Hyde syndrome when it comes to Northwestern. You just don't know what you're getting. But first half, I thought it's going to be a defensive struggle. We went down that first series and looked pretty good, I thought, on offense the first series. I know that a lot of the passes that McNamara was throwing were a little high and maybe a little out in front of him too much. Receivers made great adjustments on the ball and made some good catches. So, somebody was making a comment about how they thought the receivers have kind of stepped it up a little bit over the last 2 or 3 games. I would agree with that. Others disagreed, but said that they're still terrible. But sometimes the receivers are a product of what you have throwing the ball to you as well.
Yes.
So, what you see may not be an accurate assessment of what their true abilities are. And I think we saw that a little bit. We didn't throw the ball a ton and for a lot of yardage. We didn't have to throw it for a lot of yardage because, quite honestly, we had short fields a lot, especially in the second half. So, looking at a yardage aspect of it, you'd think, 350 yards, that's very middling. And yeah, it is, but you didn't need to have a ton because you had short field. Defense was setting you up, giving you good field position, turnovers.
And 2, we were up 40-7, and in the fourth quarter, Iowa was playing conservative ball at that point. They were just basically, let's run the ball, get the clock done, and get out of here with as least amount of injuries as we can, and move on. So they went ultra conservative. You noticed it. I mean, if you were watching the game, it was like hand the ball off, maybe a throw behind the line type of thing. Nothing downfield. They didn't do anything downfield. Now, they did throw one pass towards the end of the game, and I don't know, that was kind of shocking a little bit. They did throw one pass. I don't know if it was received. I think it was incomplete. But I thought, whoa, that's different than what we've been doing. I was wondering what the reasoning behind that was. But for the most part in the fourth quarter, you're up 40-7 until they return that punt. Mm-hmm. There's no reason to stretch the field. Kirk's not going to do that. It's not his personality. It's not the way he's done things, his entire career. He doesn't want to show up the opponent. I mean, because you never know what's going to happen. Maybe next year when Iowa's down a little bit, Northwestern's got a good team or something. They want to put 60 up on Iowa. Remember they ran it up on us last year? Well, like I say, Kirk's not going to do that. So, he's going to do the honorable thing and, start just basically going conservative, putting in some second team guys and just milking the clock, finishing the game out, getting over with, moving on.
I noticed it was second team defense the entire fourth quarter. I was kind of surprised that Marco Linas didn't get a couple of snaps towards the end, but
a little disappointed.
I think, I kind of saw how that was going because it's like, okay, so you've got your number 2 guy. We'll call it quote number 2 guy. At that point, we kind of all feel like that should have been the number 1 most of the year at least. You want to get him as many snaps as you can, but you still got to be smart and not put him out there in a position to get hurt. So, and I don't think that was the case because, it was basically here, take the snap, hand it off.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's nothing that was going to put him in any jeopardy where he was going to have to run the ball, no real straight dropbacks, anything like that, that was going to cause him to have to scramble, potentially get him into a situation where, he's going to take a hit along the sidelines that could put him out, because I think going forward, he is your number one. I don't think there's any way you can possibly go back. If you go back at this point, you are inviting Dr. Frankenstein syndrome, where they're going to storm the castle at that point and try to lynch you at that. You're telling the people that we don't care what you want, we don't care what works, I'm going with what I want. I think you can't do that now, and he knows that. I think he's setting the stage. That he used the excuse that Cade was dinged up a little bit. I don't know that anybody ever saw any medical people attend to him at all during the game. I think that's just hey, we're going to save face. We're going to have him be on the he's going to be on the questionable list next week. One of those situations where it's like, oh, well, I think that's just that's the nature of it. And some coaches are like that. That's, it's a business to them, and they don't want to look like they know they made a wrong decision. So sometimes the wrong decision gets brought to their face and they have to clean it up a little bit. If that's the case, I really don't care. I don't care how he spends it, as long as he doesn't go back at this point.
Okay. You stole my thunder, quite a bit of it, actually. I was going to go on a rant, and I may still do that, and it'll sound a little like what you just said, but first thing I want to do is I want to put kudos out to Ray Staken. 4 consecutive punts in the first, I think it was the second quarter, 4 in a row that he put inside at the 5-yard line or 6-yard line and in.
Well, I think he got a couple of them in between the 5 and they parked it at 6 anyway, which.
Well, and that's what contributed to the safety.
Mm-hmm.
And also the short fields, because, the Iowa defense was clamping down on them. They weren't gaining first downs. They weren't getting out of the shadow of their own goal line. So they were punting the ball, and Iowa was getting pretty good fields at that point, and it was just making it a little bit easier. Now, I do want to go on a rant here, and I'm going to do it real quick. You took a lot of my thunder. At the 121 left to go in the first quarter, Cade McNamara took a pretty horrendous hit. They did call roughing the passer on it. He did get hit hard, and it was like the opponents put his weight on it. That's why they called roughing the passer at that point. The pass he threw was a wounded duck. You could tell he didn't have his fingers on the. I rewatched it and slowed it down. He didn't have his fingers on the. It wasn't because of the hit. Well, no, because he got hit after he released the ball.
Yeah,
so it wasn't anything to do with the hit.
Prior to.
He didn't grab the laces again, and when he went to throw the ball and throw it deep, you got to really put a lot of torque and speed on your arm, and I think it just slid out of his hands at the last minute because he didn't put his fingers on the laces again. And I know there's other people who have talked about it, and I've talked about it. I think it's just crazy. And he got bailed out on the roughing, which he took a pretty good lick. I admit it. But here's what I don't get. At the end of the game, when Kirk was cornered about Cade, he said that Cade was dinged up. Somebody said something about concussion protocol. But my question is, why did he play 8 more plays, 2 different series? He finished up the series he was doing when he got hurt. That was 5 more plays. Then he took the 2 plays when Iowa intercepted the ball, when Schulte intercepted the ball down low, and then on that 3rd play, he threw that horrendous pick 6. Never saw the field after that. I think what you just said about saving face is 100% correct. I think what happened is that the coaching staff had made a decision that if he hurts us, we're going to Sullivan and we're going to bench him. Now, to save face, Kirk said, you're going into the concussion protocol, or we're going to make that up at halftime and say that you're dinged up so that it makes it look like it's not your fault. I don't have to answer questions this week at the press conference about whether or not you should have gone in or not, or why you didn't go in. Now I've got an excuse to use to say, hey, He couldn't go in. He was dinged up. He took a shot to the head, whatever the case may be. But he stood on that sidelines in that first half when he got pulled with his helmet on until the halftime. When he came back out of halftime, he did not have his helmet anymore. Mm-hmm. So I think at that point, with Iowa up 12-7, Brennan wasn't hurting you at that point. I think that's what happened was he just said, unless all heck breaks loose, you're done. So you might as well just set your helmet somewhere and forget about it and stand on the sidelines and make it look like we've taken your helmet away from you. That way I don't have to answer that question. I don't have to, you don't have to say you were pulled. You were saying that you could say that you were pulled out because you were dinged. And that way we don't have to, we save face that way. And that's exactly what happened. I don't care. You can talk till you're blue in the face. Oh, it's not true. It's not true. It is true. It's 100% true. If you don't think that, you're kidding yourself. So that's what happened. Did Brennan Sullivan come in and light the world on fire? No, he did not. He had 3 consecutive series where he went 3 and out. You know what? Kid hasn't played much all year. He was probably a little amped to go in there. I think they did talk about him going in at some point during the game.
Especially going up against your old team too.
And going against your old team. You got to be a little bit geeked up and ready to go, and maybe you're a little bit higher up on your anxiety level than you normally would be. And you had to settle down a little bit. And he did. Once he started running that ball, and there was a couple times, even on that 3rd and 2 or 3rd and 3, he took off and ran and made a first down. He did it even on 4th down when we decided to run the 4th down, then we took a timeout, and then we decided to run it again. I mean, that was a quarterback run all the way. When you start doing stuff like that, then that sets that defense on edge a little bit. Now they've got to be concerned about your running ability. So now all of a sudden, instead of that linebacker standing behind the line, watching KJ2, every second that he's out there, he's watching him and he's keying on him. And now he's got to stop and go, did he give him the ball or did he take off and go around the corner? With McNamara, there was no question. He handed the ball off. With Sullivan, you have to stop and go, does he have it or doesn't he have it? Does he have it? Who has it? And that little hesitation from a linebacker is what opens up holes for KJ to run through. And that's why in the 4th quarter, 3rd quarter, 2nd quarter, even towards the end of the 2nd quarter, that running ability that Sullivan has opened up the opportunities for KJ to run free. And anybody tells me different, I can say this. He rushed the ball 7 times for 4 yards when Cade was in there, thereabouts. 7 times later, he ran it for 104 yards, or 105 yards, actually. So, don't come to me and say, oh, it was Northwestern's 2nd team. No, that's not the case. Oh, it was just Northwestern's getting tired. No. Really, the only thing that you can say here is that he opened up the opportunities. The linebackers had to freeze, and that's what opened it. That's what opened everything up for him.
Yeah,
and that's what Cade can't bring or doesn't bring. Those are things that you can't. Those are intangibles that you can't account for. Now, somebody's going to come back and say, "Well, Northwestern didn't plan for this kid. They planned for Cade. He's still playing football. They knew him from last year, so they know what he's capable of. So when they saw him come in, they know, hey, this kid can run. We had him on our team last year. We know that. We know what he does. So I don't want to hear that either. That's a weak excuse.
I think they were prepared for it. It's because, like you said, it wasn't so much the hesitation from the linebacker. It's the fact that the linebackers can't crash as soon as that ball's, there was no threat from a passing standpoint to bite on the play action. So most often than not, you're crashing straight into the line. You're basically got 6 guys blocking 8. Well, there's no running lanes. But if you get a position where the running back can slip through, he's gone at that point. But that's to that point where now they can't just automatically crash on the running back. They have to stay back in their levels longer, and that exactly is what opened it up. Because that once they had to stay back longer, then you get the offensive line and the fullback and the tight ends coming across that are able to get to that second level blocking and open up those holes. And you're right, it is night and day different. And I think based on that alone, I think it just energized the defense more too,
It
because
energized
now
the
the
crowd too.
defense, yeah, the defense is looking at it like, oh, okay, well, now the offense is starting to move the ball. So A, we're not on the field as much, and two, they're putting us in better position where, we're pinning them deep, so it's giving us more of an opportunity to just kind of lick our chops and go after them. And, there wasn't a huge threat of a passing game out of Northwestern,
No.
in my opinion. So, it played right into Iowa's hands. Iowa was trying to make them one-dimensional at that point and saying, try to run the ball. You're not going to pass it. They couldn't do either. So that energy that he brought in based, what the intangible part of that is that the defense fed off of that as well. And then, the crowd feeds off of it. And it's a snowball effect at that point. Everything starts to feel a little bit different. And, I wanted Cade McNamara to be good. I mean, if you didn't want him to be good at the University of Iowa, then you don't want it what's good for Iowa anyway. If you were just like, oh, well, you wanted him out of there, fine. I wanted him to be good. I rooted for him. I hoped that he'd get better. It just didn't work. And that happens. You strike out on recruits all the time. Everybody does. Guys just don't pan out. And this is a situation where, the injuries, the mechanics weren't what we needed. The style is not what we need. So it just didn't work out. And, thanks for coming and trying. But, but I would like to say to some people, I did see that, people are like, oh yeah, we're a 7-1 team if Brendan Sullivan starts every game. I put the brakes on that too, because you don't know what could have happened. At this point, he may be do I think he could have won the game against Iowa State? Yeah. I don't think we would have lost Iowa State. But Michigan State, how do you know that the defense was that him being in there was going to make the defense stop them from running right through them? You don't. So let's just temper that. Oh, we'd be 7-1 if he was in there. That's you can't do that. You are what you are. You're 5-3.
Yeah. Couple more things. The fun thing was that, Cade McNamara had all of the first quarter and a little bit of the second quarter. And when he left, Iowa was down 7-3, and Iowa reeled off 37 straight points and went up 40-7. Now, is Sullivan the end all be all? I don't know. Yet to be determined. But I think right now he has earned the right to have the opportunity to be the man or not. So, in my opinion, you go with Sullivan and you leave McNamara as a backup in case he gets hurt or he has a terrible game. But I think what you're doing at that point is you're looking at what you've got coming in next year. And if you decide you don't like what you've got coming back next year, let's say Sullivan doesn't do any better and he has, he gets all the first string reps in practice. He starts getting the timing down and he's still not getting it done. Then you know what you got to do. You got to go out in the portal and you got to find yourself a quarterback.
You need to find somebody that's not just a one and done too.
Right. So, putting him in right now and letting him go as far as you want him to go or as far as he can go serves a benefit. Not only from a standpoint of he's going to be better next year, he's going to have the reps, he's going to have the knowledge of the offense better, he's going to know that the everything better having been in the system, having been playing in the system. Something's different if you're not playing in the system, but you know the system. It's different. It doesn't, speed of the game. You have to get out there and actually do it. So you go forward with him. If he's not the answer, if you find out later down the end of the season, he's turning the ball over, he's not throwing good passes, then we need to go get a quarterback. This guy's not going to make it. He's not going to do it this year or next year because he's coming back unless he transfers. But that's always a possibility. So I think that's important to understand is that serves a purpose. You start putting Cade back in, you start running him all the time, Cade's gone next year. Now you've got a kid that comes in who you could have played. If you don't, that's on you because you could have played him. the rest of the season. There's nothing more really to play for other than the ReliaQuest Bowl, or maybe if you really do really well, you might get to go to Orlando and play down there. So this is the opportunity that we as fans have been waiting on, because we've seen samples of what Cade McNamara can do. I don't care for it personally. I don't think he's consistent enough. He throws a nice pass sometimes, but more often than not, he doesn't. Now, like I said before, this kid, I think he has earned the opportunity to determine whether or not he's our man or not. And I don't think one game, and I don't think 3/4 of a game is enough sample size to determine that. Give him first team reps, give him the opportunity to work with Lachey, give him the opportunity to work with Gill, which he already has. Yeah. But Vanderzee, I know he's been dinged up a little bit. He may not play. Yeah, and he may not play, but give him the opportunity to play with the first string guys.
I tell you what, I've been impressed with Dayton Howard.
Yeah, and Jarrett Bowie even had a catch.
Jarrett Bowie and Seth Anderson had some good catches yesterday. I wish they'd have gone back to him a little more. I don't know if it was just the fact that we just didn't throw the ball a lot as it was, but I think there's weapons on the outside that we can take advantage of, but we just got to get a rapport with a quarterback and the receivers that they're comfortable with. Somebody who's, I thought Sullivan's threw a pretty nice ball a few times. There was other times where it's like he just, like you said, I think he was just so amped up that he just launched it.
Yeah, that pass over the middle where he just basically threw a BB at 6 yards, and nobody would have been able to catch that pass. I mean, that was a bullet.
But I think they said on the broadcast that that's one of the issues that the coaching staff has had, is that he is very
excitable,
wiry, high strung.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've had that in the past where we've had guys talk about how they're so high strung and they struggle to get them to calm down enough to be effective. That's a recruiting issue, honestly. If you can't see that,
it's kind of a coaching issue too.
Yeah,
because you have to be able to figure out the psyche of the quarterback. If he's amped, you got to figure out ways of bringing him down and keeping him calm. There's ways to do it.
I would love to have a guy with Keegan Murray's demeanor.
Yeah,
playing quarterback with the skills that some of these guys have.
But nothing going to bother him.
Yeah, with Keegan's demeanor, you'd have probably an all-pro quarterback at that point.
Maybe.
Anyway.
I thought Caden Weegan played a heck of a game. He had a lot of nice kickoff and punt returns. So you got to give him kudos. There was a lot of good things I saw on that. Giving up the punt return, whatever. That's fine. Didn't hurt us. I hope it doesn't become a trend. I know this is the second one we've done this year. Not used to seeing that as a fan base and as a team, but things happen. It didn't hurt us. Hopefully, in either game, actually, both games actually. We talked about this just before we came on. About didn't really amount to anything, but let's hope that it doesn't happen again when it actually does amount to something. Yeah. I don't want to have Wisconsin down 24-21 with 3 minutes to go in the game, kick off to them and have them run it back, or punt to them and have them run it back. That would hurt.
Yeah.
Let's make sure that we cover that.
Yep. I agree. I'd also like to tip the hat to Jamari Harris.
Mm-hmm.
Played a heck of a game yesterday. The linebackers played a great game. I thought missing Kyler Fisher was going to be a little bit of an issue. Didn't seem to matter. Having Castro back helps. Seeing him out for a week and then back for a week, granted, two different teams, two different style offenses, but he does bring a lot to the calming effect of that defense. So I think that we'd beat Michigan State with him there? Probably not. Not the way we were playing. But it's nice to have him back. I didn't think that the corners hurt us at any point. Deshaun Lee. We also saw
Jalen Watson got in the game.
there.
Yeah.
got a pass interference, so he got in the stat book. But yeah, we knew that was a very good possibility based on conversations throughout the week, how he was definitely in the mix as a true freshman. And, as a true freshman, that's a good spot for him to get in when you've got a pretty big lead, and if you make a mistake, it's not going to hurt you. And that's what happened. He made a mistake. He got turned around, didn't get his head turned. I don't think there was a whole heck of a lot of contact that, had he gotten his head turned around, probably wouldn't have been called. So I see the skill set there. He just needs to get some time.
Yeah, he's a freshman. He's his first ever experience. You got to start sometime.
Yep. So, yeah, I thought there was a lot of good. Still a little bit of bad in the first half. That I hate the fact that it takes us almost a half to get warmed up sometimes. Right. But hey, 28 points in the third quarter. I don't know when the last time was Iowa put 28 points up in a quarter. Been a while. Maryland, maybe.
Washington.
Did we put 28 points up in a quarter against Washington?
Didn't we put a bunch of pump points up on Washington
no,
2 weeks, 3 weeks ago?
It was 20-10 at half, so
okay.
We went 40-16.
Okay.
So we wouldn't have been able to do that. But yeah, it's been a while. I'd say maybe Maryland. Okay. And we did a lot of that on turnovers and self-inflicted wounds. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, let's put a wrap up on Northwestern. It was a good win against a very average team.
Average or below.
Is very Jekyll and Hyde team. Glad we were back at home. Glad we're at home this coming week against Wisconsin. I would not feel very good about that Wisconsin game if it was in Madison this year. Based on, I watched a little bit of the Penn State-Wisconsin game. I'm not 100% sold on Penn State as being that great, but Penn State beat them by 15 with a backup quarterback.
Yep.
So,
okay. You want me to go through my Washington or Wisconsin preview?
Sure.
Okay. Wisconsin preview. This is a battle for the Heartland Trophy, as a lot of people already know. It'll be a 6:30 p.m. start, in case anybody didn't know that already. Overall, they are 5-3, just like Iowa. They are 3-2 in the conference. They have wins over Western Michigan, South Dakota, Purdue, Rutgers, and Northwestern, and they have losses to the big boys: Alabama, USC, and Penn State in that order. So they've beaten who they were supposed to beat, and they've lost to who they were supposed to lose to. So we'll see how they do this year.
Maybe argue on the USC one. USC is not the team that we expect.
They were actually pretty manhandled in that game, weren't they?
Yeah, but it was out in California too. So,
Coach Luke Fickell's in his second year. They did lose their starting quarterback, Tyler Van Dyke. He was out with an injury. He'll be out all year. So they've been rolling with their second string quarterback. His name is Braden Locke. He is a sophomore. He is right now 102 of 177. That's a 57.6 completion percentage for 1,281 yards. Like I said, he was the backup, so he didn't play. There were a few games early in the season before Van Dyke got hurt that he didn't play. Van Dyke
got hurt in the first game, didn't he, against Alabama?
I thought that was the second game.
Second game? Okay, he got hurt in the second game then.
Okay. Their backup quarterback, which actually now was their third string, is now their backup. His name is Mabry Metauer. He is a freshman. He's played a little bit. He's 1 of 1 for 2 yards. Their running back, Chez Malusi, left the team. He was the one returning guy that everybody was kind of fearful of from a standpoint of the Big Ten network, or not network, from the Big Ten, just as a whole. Everybody's got like Chez Malusi's probably going to be one of the better running backs. He left the team for personal reasons. But they do have a backup who is a transfer in from Oklahoma. His name is Tywee Walker. And he has 104 rushes for 565 yards. He has a 5.4 yard average and 9 TDs. He's also received the ball 8 times for 24 yards. He has a backup name of Cade Yakimelli. 33 rushes, 274 yards, 8.3 average, 2 TDs. He's received the ball 4 times for 35 yards. Now their wide receiver core actually pretty decent. The one guy that seems like catches a lot of the passes is a man named Will Pauling Jr. He is a junior. He has 38 receptions, 381 yards for a 10-yard average. He has 2 TDs. He has carried the ball once for 4 yards. C.J. Williams, also a transfer. He transferred from USC. He has 10 receptions for 162 yards. That's a 16.2 average. And he has a TD. They have another wide receiver named Vinny Anthony. He has 13 receptions, 314 yards for a 24.2 average and 2 TDs. So he must be their deep threat.
Yeah.
They have a tight end named Riley Nowakowski. He's a redshirt senior. He has had 7 receptions for 56 yards and 8-yard average. He's not scored a touchdown this season. Defense is led by second-team All-Big Ten safety Hunter Wohler. He's got 48 tackles, 32 solos, 0 sacks, 0 interceptions. Linebacker Yaheem Thomas, 52 tackles, 24 solo, and 1 sack. Their kicker is, I would say he's average or above average, just slightly above average. He has 8 of 12 on field goals. Now, what's kind of different and strange about him is that from 50 yards,
This is the shorter ones.
From 50 yards and to 59 yards, he's 3 for 3. But from 40 to 49, he's 0 for 2. But that's kind of a strange one. He's 26 for 26 on extra points, so he's 8 of 12 on field goals. Their punter is also an Aussie, just like at Iowa. His name is Atticus Bertrams. He is a sophomore. He's punted the ball 33 times for a 46.3 yard average and a 74 yard long.
Whew.
So he's very, very similar to Reese Dakin. I think they even maybe went to the same academy in Australia. So Wisconsin and Iowa are pulling their kicker or punters from the same pool, I guess you could say. Wisconsin is a decent team. They are good at running. They will throw the ball decent. Braden Locke is actually not a bad quarterback. He's actually a fairly decent quarterback. He quarterbacked a little bit last year.
Throughout the year.
Yeah, and he's actually somebody you really have to kind of keep an eye on. He will run the ball a little bit. He's not necessarily a runner per se, but he will take it and tear off and get us some yards on you. So I look for this game to be close throughout. I really don't see either team pulling away from either. Yeah, I think it's going to be one of them 27-24, 24-21, very close, very tightly contested. I don't see, like I said, it would be very shocking to me that one team would pull away from the other at this point. I don't think it's going to happen. So take your heart medicine right before the game so that y'all can get through it because it's going to be one of them kind of games, in my opinion. I think that's what's going to happen is we're going to have a right down to the wire type of game. I think both teams are about the same. I think they're both, pretty.
So it's going to be a typical
pretty
Iowa,
consistently the
Wisconsin
same. Yeah.
Yeah, it's typically the same formula every year when Iowa and Wisconsin play. It's hard-nosed defense, run the ball, and fairly close games. Now, there were some times back in the late 90s, early 2000s where Wisconsin was clearly the better team. The Rondane years. Yeah, there's
Monte Ball.
Yeah, then the Melvin Gordon, who we don't talk about Melvin Gordon around here. But I think this is very typical of a Wisconsin team we've seen over the last probably 3 or 4 or 5 years, which ironically has been the teams that Iowa has been able to match up best against and beat. So,
do you want to provide a prediction on the game?
Gut reaction without really giving too much thought to it. I'm not going to pick a winner, but I'm going to say this is probably a 20-13, 17-13 type of game, maybe 20-10, something along those lines. It's going to be close, within one score. And it's going to be that way pretty much the whole game. It's not going to be like, well, one team gets out 20-0 and the other team starts to make a comeback. I don't think that's going to happen. If that happens, then it's because turnovers and somebody gets hurt or something to that effect. I think Iowa has the advantage because they're playing at home. They've got the home crowd behind them. I don't think that Wisconsin has played very well on the road against teams with a pulse. So, and you look at common opponents. You look at Northwestern. Northwestern, they beat them 23-3.
Yeah.
I think honestly, Iowa probably would have won 40-0 had it not been for you take away a stupid pick six that went 85 yards and a punt return that went 74 yards, and they had nothing.
Yeah, and you got to remember too that Northwestern played Wisconsin at Northwestern too, so there was Wisconsin had to go on the road, so you got to give Northwestern the 3 points. I'm gonna say it's gonna be 18-17.
Oh, jeez.
I'm gonna go with Iowa to win because they're at home, only because they're at home. I think it's going to be a slugfest. I think it's just going to be, whoever turns the ball over the least, whoever gets penalized the least is going to win the game.
Yeah.
I think Iowa's got a better kicker.
Yeah, I'd say I think Iowa has a better kicker, has a better running game. But,
No.
It's a typical Wisconsin team. They're built around their defense as well. And I don't know if their defense is quite as good as it has been in years past, but it's still pretty darn good. I don't think Iowa's defense is good as has been in the years past, but it's still pretty good. So it'll be interesting. It'll be a good game. And
what are you looking to see out of this?
Honestly, I would feel very, very good if Iowa could win and control it wire to wire. I don't care if it ends up being a 20-17 game, but they never have, they never relinquish a lead. That's fine with me. I think that bodes well going forward. I think this is probably this and Nebraska are the last two real tough games. Probably this one and then Nebraska. Although Nebraska played very well against Ohio State yesterday,
they did.
But was that a product of Nebraska playing well against Ohio State or Ohio State looking past them? I don't know. It's because you look a week ago and Nebraska gets boat raced by Indiana 56-7. Now, again, is that a product of Indiana just being really good and Nebraska not being that great? Nebraska giving up because Indiana was good and it was on the road? I don't know. It remains to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
I saw that Indiana basically ran right through Nebraska that game.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't understand how Ohio State couldn't do that. I just think Ohio State had come off a bye week. They were still down after losing to Oregon, and they were sleepwalking through it, and they were just going through the motions. Like, well, it's an inferior Big Ten team. We shouldn't have to really put our best effort. Well, we saw what happened when Iowa does that against Michigan State. So, yeah, I want to see establish the run. I want to see us pass the ball consistently when we need to, but not necessarily have to pass the ball because we're behind. I don't want to see big, huge passing numbers just because we're behind. I want to see 200 yards rushing and 150 yards passing, and I take 350 yards and win. I don't care.
Yeah.
That's what I'd like to see.
I guess what I'd like to see is I'd like to see the coaches' game plan for Wisconsin by putting in plays that accentuate the skill set that Sullivan presents. In other words, Wisconsin's probably going to come in and they're going to game plan for Sullivan. Now, what Iowa needs to do is they need to game plan for Wisconsin game planning for Sullivan by doing things that are, they have not seen on tape.
Broken tendencies.
And they can go back and look at 2023 at Northwestern and watch what he does and that kind of thing, but it's not the same. Different offensive coordinator, different team, all that. So what Iowa needs to do is they need to say, okay, we got us a kid that can run the ball. Let's set some plays up. Let's run some plays that we can really take advantage of what he does. And now, and it may be more of a fake type situation where you run him around like he's gonna run around the edge on a bootleg, and then you have somebody break free when somebody comes forward, and you throw a pass, or it's just a situation where you can set this kid up for success. It just depends on whether you want to or not, or whether you just feel like we're just going to stay with the status quo. He's going to have to run the plays that we already have. And I think if you're going to do that, that's not going to help. I think you need to set up plays that are going to be successful for him.
I think play action bootleg is a huge play for him that he can. That's something that Cade couldn't do because of his immobility. This is something that, oh, hey, if you're going to go ahead and cover the guy in the flat, the tight end leaks out into the flat, then I'm going to go ahead and run it.
Right.
We saw it yesterday when that little pass to Pascuzzi, and boy, it's like somebody put a rocket up his rear end and he just blew past the tight end after he'd thrown the ball to him.
Yep.
That's
just blocking for him.
The kind of athlete you've got. That kid's fast. Kid's got some wheels. Get him
and he's
out
bigger
there
than McNamara.
Yeah. I mean, I think you've got to be a little bit more conservative with him, though, because you don't want to get him hurt because you don't have that behind him. But you can't play him in bubble wrap either.
Right.
That's football. They're football players. They need to be able to take a hit now and then. Obviously, don't want to lay him out there for just to get absolutely obliterated on a play. But you got to let him do his thing and not be, oh well, run it, but don't run it type of thing.
Right.
You got to let him play. And like I said, I think that bootleg play action bootleg is perfect for his skill set because it still gives him that run pass option of, well, if they're going to come up and try to get me on the bootleg, then I'll just dump it off to the tight end. If they're going to play off on the tight end can turn and block, and I'll run past it.
Exactly.
Hey, that's fine.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's set up for that, and that's the skill set that he can bring. So,
what else did we have?
I did want to talk a little bit about the exhibition basketball. The men's basketball team opened their exhibition season on Friday night with a 102-81 victory over Minnesota Duluth. I know a lot of people look at that and say, oh, 21-point win over a Division II school. Well, I don't put a whole lot of stock in exhibition games because you're putting out lineups that probably aren't going to be playing together as much, but you're just trying to see what you're going to get. This is also a pretty quality Division II team. Yes, it is a Division II team. You should still beat them, but you beat them by 20, and you had a 25, 28-point lead at one point, and it is what it is. It's a very well-coached team, coached by a former Hawkeye walk-on, Justin Wick, and they are a perennial 25, 26, 27-game winner in their division every year. So, and they were senior laden. There are a lot of fourth and fifth year guys on that team, so they've all played together. Now, Iowa is very young. Outside of Peyton Sanford, Iowa's basically freshmen and sophomores. So I expected some bumps in the road. I didn't expect the turnovers that I saw. I think they did clean that up in the second half. Point guard play was very lackadaisical. I think the best player on the court at times was Josh Dix.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
The kid's smooth. He's just smooth.
Yeah.
He's Joe Wieskamp with more confidence almost. But yeah, you got good contributions out of Stanford. You got both Stanfords, Peyton and Price. Price got 11. Took him a little bit to get going, but once he did get fire, once he got in a groove, he started to put some buckets in and playing better. Of course, Owen Freeman and Josh Dix. So do we have 23, 21, and 20? Is that what it was on those three guys? 66 points, I think, maybe it was 23, 22, and 21.
That could be. I don't know. I didn't look at the stats.
Yeah, so 66 of your 102 come from those three guys. New guys, I see flashes in Sidhu Traore. I see some athletic ability. He needs to kind of work on not fouling. Dembele he's bigger than he was last year. The skill set's there. I just think he needs to be a little bit more assertive and confident in what he's doing. I didn't get to see a ton of Drew Thelwell. I thought he needed to get in a little bit more. Chris Tadjo did not get in at all, and that was not due to injury. Fran basically was mad at himself for not getting him in. So he wasn't going to play a ton, but he was disappointed that he didn't get him in. Brock didn't look great at all. Didn't see, 1 of 7, 2 points, and he had 3 or 4 turnovers. So, very mixed bag on an exhibition game. But again, as I said, you've got combinations out there that aren't going to probably be playing together like that. And, once you get into games that matter, certain things you don't do that you do in an exhibition that we didn't do in a normal game because it doesn't count. Certain guys like exhibition games is where you see guys like Owen Freeman stepping out and taking threes or something. That probably something that's going to be very rare in a regular game. So take it with a grain of salt. The defense is supposed to be better. I didn't see it. But again, combinations that you may not see during the season. I thought Evan Braun's actually come in and gave them pretty decent minutes off the bench. He's not going to be a guy that lights it up or anything. He's going to be 2 to 4 points a game and 2 to 4 rebounds a game, and that's about all you're going to get. But he did it without fouling. He was in the right spot. He defensively was pretty decent as far as being a rim protector at times. So kudos to him. I'm trying to think of who else I might be missing out of the group. Cooper looked good at times, and he looked lost at times. I think he's going to be good. He just needs to get comfortable in the system. He's going to be one of those guys that by mid-season you're going to be thinking, this kid could be easily one of the first guys off the bench, or could potentially be starting. I don't know if who he would supplant unless they moved like Dix to point guard and moved him into like the number 2 or so or 3 spot or whatever. Maybe Dembele if he's not.
He goes through a slump or
he has
trouble with turnovers.
The only thing I saw out of him that I kind of was disappointed in was his lack of aggression. He's got a big body. He just seems to get blocked out pretty easily on some rebounds. He seems to be hesitant on his shot inside the paint, like he's not really expecting to shoot it. But he wasn't hesitant when he took his 3. So, I don't know if he just considers himself more of a perimeter type of guy, and that inside stuff is something he's trying to learn. I don't know. With his size and his bulk, that inside is where he needs to live, and that's where he needs to work on his game. And let that, they're not a very good 3-point shooting team yet. They could be by the end of the year, by the middle of the year. I don't know. They're, secret scrimmage and in an exhibition game, they're shooting about 22% from 3-point range. A lot of those happened late. So I don't, but the fact that you're still putting up 100 points with not a very good 3-point shooting team tells me that you've got a pretty good offense. And we know that it's Iowa. Iowa doesn't have issues putting points on the board. It's keeping points off the board is where Iowa has the problem. So
yeah, that was some of the observation I was going to say, is that I think the defense has not been an emphasis at any point.
Well, even if it is an emphasis, it's not gotten any better.
It's not gotten better. For sure, it's not gotten any better. I'm concerned that when we get into Big Ten play, that, right now I think the mindset, and it might be the mindset, have to be the mindset of everyone, is that, Iowa's just going to have to outscore you. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what they've been with for the last couple of years, is that they're just going to try to outscore you and hope that they play just good enough defense to keep you 1 point less than what they have. And I think you're going to find that when the Big Ten starts, there's going to be teams that will play defense, and Iowa will have bad nights shooting. But if you don't have a defense, if you don't bring your defense with you to the game, it's going to be a long season. And I know that people are excited about this team, and they have a right to be excited. Everybody should be excited about their team this early in the season. Do I see the handwriting on the wall? I do. I see the handwriting on the wall. I don't think this is going to be any better. Now, I hope I'm wrong. I really do. I hope I'm wrong. But I'm just saying there's been teams that Iowa's put on the court that I thought had better players that didn't live up to the expectations. Now, the expectations this year, I'm not sure what they are, but I think, probably NCAA tournament would be on a lot of people's lips. I think that's going to be a struggle. I really do. I think if they are in the conversation at the end of the year about, they'll be on the bubble, I think that's the best Iowa right now you're going to have to hope for. This team is young. Peyton Sanford is not going to be able to carry this team. Mm-hmm. And I know that Owen Freeman's going to have good days and he's not going to have good days. You're just going to have to take the ups with the downs. And without playing good defense, without really exerting yourself on defense, and I'm hoping that Drew Thelwell will be the defensive player that we can rely on to help. And I think Trey Dew may help some on the defense. I just think that without that, it's the same old story. If you win, it's going to be 95, 90, 96, 96, 95. If you lose, it's going to be, 96, 59. It just because Iowa can be one of two ways. They
hot or cold.
They're very inconsistent. A lot of the really good quality teams, and I know this sounds obvious, but your really good teams are the ones that are the consistent teams. They consistently bring their defense and they consistently can shoot. And those are the teams like Kansas and the Dukes and the North Carolinas and the Connecticuts of the world. Kirk Ferentz talks about the three phases of football, offense, defense, and special teams. Fran needs to start really focusing on the defensive end. It really does. Either he needs to start recruiting kids that are really good on defense and then teach them how to play offense. That's what he needs to do, so that it just doesn't seem like the off season, Fran jumps out and says, we're going to concentrate 100% on defense today, tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day, and we'll get offense. Because we know what we got on offense. We know we can play offense. We haven't just demonstrated a defense yet. Mm-hmm. And that's not his style. I get it, but he needs to make it his style. It's cost you more than it's going to help you.
It needs to be an emphasis, and
it does.
Guys need to be held accountable for it as well. When you put up poor defensive effort, I don't care how good of an offensive player you are, you need to be yanked out of there, and somebody needs to be put in there. Because if you are a 35-point-a-game scorer, but you allow your guy to score 40, what good is your 35?
Well, the only person I know that can get away with that is Caitlin Clark.
Well,
and that's a generational talent that you won't find.
Yeah. Speaking
anywhere.
of Caitlin Clark, I saw that Christy Sides got fired.
Mm-hmm.
So,
what does that leave the door open for?
Jen, Lisa Bluter.
Probably. I don't think she'll take it though, but maybe.
No,
I don't know. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes.
Could be. Yeah, she went to quite a few games, so
yeah,
we'll see.
It just seems odd that they'd fire her now instead of like right after the season.
Well, it just seems odd that they'd fire her after a playoff appearance when they hadn't made it in 8 years. So
yeah,
and there had to be some plans in motion already.
I think
prior to the end of the season. So, and I wonder if it had more to do with just attitude and how she didn't really, and I hate to say this because I don't want people to think that Caitlin Clark should be able to get away with whatever she wants, but when your coach doesn't necessarily always have your back and stand up for you, I wonder if that had a lot to do with it too, because it seemed like there were times where she was like, she'd let things happen that shouldn't have happened, and I think that had a lot to do with it as well. But,
yeah.
I'm speculating because I'm not behind closed doors there. So,
well, whoever they get is inheriting a pretty good team if they bring everybody back. And if they make
obviously they won't, because they've got the expansion draft and they'll have to give up some players.
Right.
But I mean, your core players are going to be back. Your Leah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell, Caitlin Clark, probably Lexi Hull. I don't remember who the other one was. I don't think people like Erica Wheeler are safe. There's others, but the fact that I even know that many players on a WNBA team shows you the Caitlin Clark effect for me.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't have cared one way or the other.
Well, prior to last year, I couldn't
lot
even
of
have told you. I couldn't even have told you who the teams were even were.
I
If
wouldn't
you
have
said, "Oh, name me the New York women's basketball team, WNBA team," I'd have been like, "New York Knicks." I have no idea. I couldn't have told you.
Well, that's pretty
And I
close.
don't really watch the NBA either, so
Yeah. I did watch a little bit the other night and watched Keegan just absolutely posterize somebody, but he had the fun pleasure of going one-on-one with LeBron most of the night. So
yeah.
interesting. But anyway, that's a topic for a different day and not even for this show. So let's wrap up on that. Let's get a new question of the week out. New question of the week for this week. I'd like to know. So the Heartland Trophy was introduced in the Iowa-Wisconsin series in 2004. And obviously the winner gets their name put on it. Who has won the trophy the most since the trophy's inception in 2004? That's the question. And what's the record? And the only hint I will give you is Iowa won it the first year in 2004, 30-7. So it's an easy one to look up. All you have to do is do some little Google searching. You'll have it, but try to do it without Google if you have to. Definitely use Google and answer that question. But as always, if you like the content here, let's give us a thumbs up, subscribe. We did get a couple of new subscribers. We're up to 30 now, so I'm kind of pleased with that. Check us out on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok. We do have quite a few people that are subscribed to us on TikTok, believe it or not. I'd like to see those people kind of jump over and start listening to the full podcast, not just the 45-second to 1 minute segments that I post over there. But hey,
must be an ADHD thing.
Yeah, it could be, or a generational thing.
Yeah.
People can only hold their interest for a couple minutes.
Yeah.
Just throw us some comments. Like, we enjoyed the comments we got this last week. Telling us what you enjoyed about it, and we try to keep it as real as possible, and we're not going to sugarcoat things. If we need to be harsh on the coaches or whatever, then we're going to do that. It's we have no affiliation with the university whatsoever,
right.
So it's not like I'm worried that Kirk Ferentz is going to come to my house and want to fight me because I said that I think he's trying to do something to save face.
Right.
He's probably sitting back, if he's listening to it, probably saying, they figured it out.
Yeah, we're just two fans, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm just going to tell you what I see. And it may not be what you want to hear, but it's what I feel. And maybe I'm opinionated, sure. But that's what this is about. I have to express an opinion. Otherwise, if I go in wishy-washy and I can't take a side, then what good is it to have a microphone in front of me then?
Yep, absolutely. So, let's put a bow on it then. And with that, let's meet back here again next week. Hopefully another nice Hawkeye win. Get us up to 6-3, bowl eligible, and move on from there with a pretty manageable schedule the rest of the way. So,
yep.
On that note, let's end it up on a rousing Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.